Hello, I'm TheZOMBIEJ, and it's been a while since I last uploaded a video. Actually, it's been like a few days or so. Before we get into today's video, well, I would like to apologize for the lack of activity, or the lack of content, rather. I was working on stuff, had some projects I was working on, built some mocks, and I will showcase those in a later video or two. Haven't started work on the vehicle that I was gonna build, but trust me, it's gonna happen. It's gonna be built. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna kick some ass. It's gonna look mean. It's gonna look awesome. If I can just get off my ass and fucking build the damn thing. So, there you go. This video is not about Bionicle. In fact, it's not even about Lego. I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about music, specifically heavy metal and my relationship with heavy metal. Now, why do I say that? Because, our love for music is so great that, it would make jealousy. It can make some people jealous, So, I've had quite a history with heavy metal. Ever since 2008 when I started listening to Rob Zombie, and of course Ozzy Osbourne with the song Crazy Train. Yeah, that song was pretty damn fun. In fact, it's probably his signature song. It's probably his best song, solo-wise. And it's probably my favorite Ozzy Osbourne song of all time, in terms of solo stuff. That's up for debate. Have at it. What's your favorite Ozzy song? Post in the comment section below. I've been collecting metal albums, EPs and singles and whatnot since I got my first metal CD, which was, ironically, a Rob Zombie CD. Christmas of 2009, I think? Or 2008. I don't remember. Point is, I got Hellbilly Deluxe. I was fucking hooked. It was a great album. And also got Past, Present, and Future, too. So that was a nice little compilation of fun. So I still have those, actually. And, my collection ever since then has expanded. And I've kind of, listened to industrial metal, traditional heavy metal, thrash metal, very little power metal, death metal, black metal, alternative metal, new metal, obviously. What else? Deathcore, metalcore, melodic death metal, brutal death metal, grindcore, gore grind, porno grind. That's one, apparently. Have fun with that one. Have fun researching that one. What else is there? Did I already say gore grind? Yeah, I did. Technical death metal, technical thrash metal, fusions of different genres like death black or black death, fusions of death metal and black metal. And there's also doom metal, also death doom is pretty good stuff. Act of Impalement is a band that does the death doom thing and very well, I might add. Check out Hyperborean Altar, great EP. And of course, I think thrashcore is another type of thing. Speed metal is another one. Check out Heavy Metal Maniac by Exciter. That is a classic. It really is an 80s classic that really needs attention. It really does. What else is there? Gothic metal. I mean, if you want to consider gothic metal bands like, I don't really even know. Typo Negative. I don't really like Typo Negative all that well, but they're all right for the most part. there's all sorts of genres, subgenres, and sub-subgenres, and there's all these fucking genres. Gent, I'm not a fan of. I mean, yeah, Meshuggah is probably the best band to showcase this style, but at the same time, it didn't need to be an entire fucking subgenre. You know, Periphery is also part of that distinction, I think. And they're not that bad, honestly. Periphery aren't bad, it's just, I don't really care for the vocals. The music is fine, sure, I just don't care about the vocals. I haven't really listened to Meshuggah at all, because, well, I'm just not willing to. I don't really care. It's not my thing. Crust, there are bands that infuse crust punk into their sound, like Bombs of Hades did a EP called Carnivores. Obviously, their entire sound is, death metal with crust punk added in, and it's pretty fucking awesome. Check out the Carnivores EP; it's excellent. New wave of British heavy metal. Obviously, we listen to bands like Tokyo Blade, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, if they even count as new wave of British heavy metal. I like to think of them as more classic heavy metal. You know, kind of going along with the earliest of Black Sabbath and whatnot. And yeah, they are doom metal as well. Black Sabbath are doom metal, but that really didn't really fully launch until the 80s, I think. So, yeah, there was a lot of genres, subgenres, and subgenres of fucking heavy metal. It's fucking obnoxious. It's insane to keep up with this. It's hard to keep up with this shit. It really is. And so I feel like my relationship with heavy metal is sort of a love-hate relationship. I love it because there's a lot of great stuff to listen to. I've listened to a lot of fantastic fucking bands, and it's insane, you know? It's fucking phenomenal. There's a lot of epic stuff out there, a lot of aggressive, a lot of fun, a lot of just balls to the wall awesome. A lot of great music, a lot of great artists, a lot of great bands, classic bands, modern bands, somewhere in between that. Basically, through every generation of heavy metal, you'll find something, obviously, and I found quite a lot. I have. Also, Viking metal is a thing, obviously. Yeah. But I love heavy metal because of all this, but I also kind of hate it, you know? I hate it because there just seems to be too much. There's too much of everything. It seems like there's like, I don't know, man. Okay. It seems like that the stuff we've been hearing nowadays, and by nowadays I mean for the past decade and a half, it seems like it's especially the past decade, it's been more typical, and there are bands forming, it seems, daily. And everything feels a little bit typical, everything feels a little samey. Things start to feel, you've heard it all before, so I've heard it all before, trust me. And I feel like today's bands, the bands that, Oslo groove metal is a thing, pretty good. Obviously, there are bands that kind of do a lot of great justice for heavy metal and for music in general. But at the same time, there are some nowadays that are just kind of, you've heard it before, and it's kind of weird, and it's kind of strange. Like, some people are just not willing to really experiment all that well. People are not willing to, bands are not willing to, new wave of traditional heavy metal is a thing, and so is new wave of old school thrash, old school death. Yeah, people are basically, going back in time to the classic heydays of thrash and death metal as well. and that's pretty cool. There's some great bands like Toxic Holocaust or what's another one? Violator's pretty good. Heathen, obviously that's an old band. But Skeleton Witch is an interesting one. But at the same time, within the past decade, things have just seemed to just sound too similar to what we've heard before. Obviously with better production, even though you're going for that old school vibe. And, well, I can understand the old school thing. It's nice to have this stuff on the market. But at the same time, try to be more original, you know? Try to be more original than just basically copying someone else's homework, you know? Copying what these bands did in the 90s and the 80s. Yeah, just don't do that. Do what... make things feel more fresh, a little more organic, a little more natural than just, you know, doing what these older bands have done for so long. And that's the problem with heavy metal nowadays. It seems like there's bands that are just, you know, doing the same thing that they've been doing, or that other bands have done, for decades. It's like Judas Priest, for the most part, have been pretty fucking solid over the years, except, well, they had a couple of stinkers here and there. Obviously, Turbo was not that great, from what I've heard. Jugulator wasn't that good either. And Iron Maiden, for the most part, has been relatively consistent. Although Fear of the Dark it's not the best Iron Maiden album, but it's not a good album either. I don't know. There's just a lot of typicality in today's metal. And people have tried to fuse different ideas into heavy metal. Like the hardcore stuff has gone into heavy metal. And also a lot of slam is pretty good. There's some pretty good slam bands out there, you know, slamming brutal death metal and whatnot. But even all of that tends to get a little typical and a little... it all sounds the same, to be honest. And, I don't know. The whole thing with heavy metal is that, you know, you either love it or hate it. For me, it's both. It's a love or hate. It's a love-hate relationship type of thing for me. And, you know, I've always had this massive affinity for heavy metal. There's a lot of great stuff out there. Progressive metal is another one I forgot, and there's some great stuff there too. But obviously, you know, artists like Operation Mindcrime haven't been doing good things. Thanks, Jeff Tate. Fate's Warning, I think, haven't really put out anything good from what I've heard. Queensryche is still going on, obviously. Then there's a band called Hakan, or Haken, I don't know. They had an album called Affinity, which came out in 2016, and that was pretty awesome, actually, from what I heard. It's just hard to keep things fresh nowadays. It's hard to keep things new. Obviously, there's new ideas and new sort of elements going into certain types of heavy metal nowadays, but does it really need to be in that way? Obviously, people are going to target bands like Baby Metal for fusing J-pop with heavy metal. Hey, I fucking love J-pop. Fuck you. I haven't really listened to Baby Metal yet, but hey, cut them some slack. They're very famous for the what they were able to do. You know, they're a great trio, and their backing band is pretty awesome too, from what I've heard. And obviously, there are Japanese bands like Hanabi, who are a metalcore band of women who are playing metalcore, and it's actually pretty damn awesome. There's some great stuff going on here. But at the same time, you know, the breakdowns seem a little typical as well. But I just happen to enjoy Hanabi's material, you know, from their debut EP to their 2 full lengths that they've released. And it seems like they're gearing up to release another one at some point. I can see Hanabi going on for, who knows, the next decade probably. But at the same time, there are metalcore bands that it's kind of hard to see that with, you know? I see it with Hanabi. I think they're awesome. Killswitch Engage is a metalcore band that has been going on forever. Since, what, late 90s? Early 2000s? And, well, it's kind of hit or miss with Killswitch Engage. And I like Killswitch Engage, I really do. But it's hard to keep things fresh. And I know I've been saying that a lot in this video. It really is hard to keep things fresh, keep it new. It seems like bands nowadays are using recycling the same old tired riffs and songwriting styles and ideas and philosophies and whatnot. It's just hard to... And there's so much of it, too. There's so much of this shit. It's like, you know, how much of it can you really listen to? You can't possibly listen to every single fucking band that's ever existed from every single fucking genre, subgenre, sub-subgenre. Ugh. It's absolutely insane. And that's probably the biggest reason why I hate heavy metal. I don't hate the music. Okay, there's some bands that I just can't stand their shit. Like Limp Bizkit, of course. I know it's kind of cliche to kind of, you know, trash on Limp Bizkit, but hey, it's true. They suck. And hey, they released an album in recent years called Still Sucks. Because, literally, they still suck! So fucking obnoxious. You know, most new metal tends to be different every now and then. You know, Korn released a dubstep album, and, well, that might have been the first dub metal album from 2011, and, well, it's not that great. In fact, I kind of hate it. I don't know why I decided to buy a new copy of it. Well, it wasn't really that new. It was kind of beat around the bush. But that album was just weird. It's like fusing new metal with dubstep, and it's like, what were they thinking? But at the same time, I can understand what they were going for here, but it's just not that great. It's not that great. Not even the instrumental yeah, there's instrumentals out there of all the songs. Check it out. Even the instrumentals are not worth listening to. It's just bullshit. It really is. And of course, you know, lineup changes and, well, deaths of some members tend to affect bands quite drastically in some ways. You know, Paul Gray from Slipknot, he died, and, you know, I had sort of doubts that the band would be able to legitimately continue on without him. And, well, here they are now. They've released a further 3 albums, and they are now independent. So, they released an EP, and I didn't listen to it because I didn't really care. But the end so far was kind of, I'd say it was the weakest link of the trilogy of, well, new Slipknot albums, you know, this new era. Point 5, The Grey Chapter, was sort of a sentimental type of thing. They felt for the band as well as the fans. I felt sentimental with that album. I could really connect with it very well. It was just a good album for the most part. There was some not that good stuff here and there, but at the same time, We Are Not Your Kind was, they really missed on, they didn't put all out life on the actual track listing. They instead put as a bonus track on the Japanese edition, which, okay, that's fine, sure, but it should have been part of the track listing. I think they were just trying to keep it 14 tracks, compared to their recent output. It was 12 tracks. It's like, make up your minds. That's another thing. Track listings is like, where do you think a certain song or a certain single is going to sit in the album? The higher it goes, or the lower it goes in the album, or somewhere in between. Is it really the best place for the song? And it's like, I don't know. And also, generic. Yes, that bad word. There tends to be a lot of generic stuff out there when it comes to the metal genre and subgenre and subgenres. There's some generic stuff out there, and it's pretty fucking bad. I mean, if you want generic, I guess I can throw out Sev, who have one album called All These Dreams. I actually have that album. I actually like it. It's not bad. It's just, well, okay, maybe it is bad. It's sort of taking Limp Bizkit and making it somewhat heavier. Yeah, that's right. A Limp Bizkit-like band that's heavier than Limp Bizkit. At least that's what I think. And they only lasted for one album. They don't really do much anymore, but hey, they're still pretty alright for the most part. I do enjoy their material every now and then. At least, well, with that album. But it also feels a little bit generic at the same time. And while there's definitely some even more generic stuff nowadays, in terms of, well, from, I guess, every genre. But at least with J-pop, there tends to be some generic stuff, but I can get behind it. I like J-pop. I can't complain about anything in J-pop. J-pop is great music. I tend to question, the why certain tracks are not on certain albums, but decisions are made. Oh boy, then nowadays death metal tends to be a little bit generic as well, and there's some pretty typical thrash metal, and sometimes black metal is even starting to get a little typical. Going back to the old 90s era of philosophy and whatnot, there was some great stuff there. But at the same time, nowadays when you listen to black metal, these bands just are basically going back to those days and reliving those days if they wanted to, with their albums. And while there are some bands that are still trying to keep things fresh and unique, this is the same for all genres, subgenres. It's just hard to get behind because there seems to be too much of a typicality to some of these albums and some of these bands. And it's just hard to keep up with all this stuff. And I could only listen to so much of it before I start to get a headache. And you might say the same thing with you and J-pop. Yeah, well, fuck you, J-pop is awesome. But there's also other J music that is pretty good. There's some rock albums, the rock bands in Japan that are pretty awesome. Lenny Code Fiction have a song called Seiyen, which is pretty damn awesome. And the whole indie rock thing is, there's some stuff over in Japan that's pretty damn good. And everywhere it seems there's bands being formed daily, and they're putting out albums, putting out EPs, putting out whatever the fuck they want, and they just generally don't give a shit if anybody actually likes it or not. That's a thing with the Melvins. I know they're not metal, but hey, the Melvins were writing music for music's sake. They didn't really give two damns what anybody thought about their music. That's respectable. It really is. And you have to credit the Melvins with a lot. They influenced grunge, and probably still influence nowadays. I mean, they're still out there doing music. It's insane. But the amount of heavy metal bands and heavy metal albums that are out today and these days is insane. I have lists of albums I wrote down on a notebook. I have an entire notebook of, albums to listen to from the past couple of years or so that I still haven't listened to. It's hard to keep up with. Part of it is because I can be a little lazy sometimes when it comes to actually, going out and seeking out this material and listening to it. But at the same time, some of this stuff is not even worth listening to because some of the typicality and the generic nature of it, Can heavy metal really be generic? Well, in some ways I think so. Let's take a look at bands from the nu metal distinction. I know there are people that that cherish nu metal as this thing that they grew up with, and and it helped them through hard times and whatnot. I understand that. I've been there myself, but there's some generic shit out there. Trust me, and there's better stuff out there too. I say Sev are generic. Well, there's a worse band. It's slipping my mind, but I think there's an album called Subject to Change, and I heard that was very generic and very garbage, and I didn't even want to listen to it. Yeah, I'm biased. Fuck you. It's just, it is what it is, A bad album is a bad album. So, there you go. Symphonic metal, there's some great stuff out there, Nightwish is still putting out music. I mean, they're currently trying to release a new album. I don't know if they did or not, but Endless Form's Most Beautiful is a fantastic album for what it was. It filled out the entire fucking disc, and it was magical for what it was. The instrumental disc, I have the Digibook edition, which has the instrumental disc, which is fine. I don't care. But at the same time, Nightwish, their album that came out after that, apparently wasn't as good as Endless Form's Most Beautiful. But at least they tried to top themselves with that album and with whatever they decide to put out next. I see Nightwish as a band that, any metal fan can listen to and appreciate. Especially with the front woman who's hot as hell. But there is also symphonic metal bands like, I can't remember. I don't know, there's a lot of symphonic stuff out there that's pretty good. There's even rock bands that incorporate symphonics as well, like Cryoshell. Yeah, that's a name nobody remembers probably, except Bionicle fans. Hi. They technically qualify as symphonic rock, even though they have a bit of metal here and there too, but they're a rock band. They really are. And they're great. Even though they haven't released an actual single since 2021. They did a collaboration with Essinger, which is pretty cool. As Above, So Below is a great song. I like it. Check it out. Back to metal. Well, there's really not much else to say, honestly. So, I do love all the stuff that I was able to find and enjoy. All these genres I've been able to, all these subgenres I've been able to find something to enjoy. And I do treasure some of the artists that I first started with, like Rob Zombie and, of course, White Zombie, With Astro Creep 2000, that was my favorite White Zombie album, and it was their best. It really was. Los Exorcisto Devil Music Volume 1 was pretty damn good as a groove metal album. It sort of did that thing, and it was pretty damn awesome. A little overrated, though. Probably because of Thundercat 65. That's their most overrated song, but hey, it's their breakout song, so I got them some slack. But Astro Creep is the real deal. Astro Creep 2000, fucking awesome. Talk about industrial metal. There are other bands like Ministry that I don't really care to listen to be honest. Pitch Shifter is another one that I've never really cared to listen to. There's a lot of bands that I obviously don't care to listen to, mostly because I just don't give a shit, really. I don't. You can recommend me some bands in the comment section below. Throw them all down there in as many lists as you can come up with. But I just not in. I don't know. There's some bands out there that I'm not interested in listening to. I'll listen to an album or an EP from a band here, from a band there, whatever. But I mean, I get some people are unwilling to go further than just that one album or that one EP. But like again with Hyperborean Altar EP by Active Impalement, that's a great EP. Death Doom, pretty damn good Death Doom as well. And that's really all I've listened to from Active Impalement. I basically gone with the whole thing of, if this is what the rest of their material sounds like, that's all I need is just this EP. I don't need to listen to everything else. And that's kind of a bullshit excuse in my opinion, but when you look at it, it's just kind of, it is the truth. Some of the stuff tends to sound unoriginal, and boring, bland, typical, and it gets to be a little much, I do enjoy a lot of bands, but I've been thinking about the past, day or so, couple of days, day and a half maybe, I don't know, and where I'm at right now, who the fuck was that? Where I'm at right now is basically this. I still like heavy metal. I like it a lot. It's awesome. There's a lot of great stuff out there that I still listen to, particularly what's in my collection, my CD collection, my vinyl collection, what little there is, and the only cassette tape I have, which is Hell Awaits by Slayer. Yeah. What I listen to is what I listen to, and yeah, there's definitely some great stuff out there that I haven't listened to, that I wanted to listen to, but, going back to the lists I've made of, I've wrote down the names of the band, wrote down the album, wrote down the year, and then time goes by and here we are now, and here I am now, and I just still haven't listened to it. And at this point, I don't care anymore. I really don't. There's bands out there that have released an album in recent, like even this year. There are bands that have released albums this year that are lesser knowns, that I don't really care enough to listen to their material and make my own judgment call on their material. Because other people are going to do it, why should I have to? So, there's just too much metal out there to listen to, and it's really hard to keep up with this shit, and it's really hard to, for me, to sit down, listen to an album, listen to an EP. I find EPs to be a little easier to listen to because they're shorter, for one, and two, it's just a little one and done thing, I listen to the EP, I move on. To where with an album, depending on how long it is, I can sit down and listen to it in one go, obviously. But if it's an extremely long album, like if it's a triple album or a double album, or I don't go for those. I really don't. The double album concept is pretty cool. There's some great double albums out there. And hell, there's even triple albums out there that are probably decent, but I've never really bothered to seek those out because I just don't give a shit. I mean, really, I don't give a shit. These bands who make these double albums clearly are doing it because it's ambitious. It's a different thing, it's something to, follow up their first album. Just be typical about it, but hey, Guns N' Roses, I know this is somewhat of a glam rock band, but hey. Guns N' Roses released Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 on the same day, but they were separate, so... I mean, there's probably a Digipack collection of the two albums out now, but hey. Back then you had to buy both albums separately. And this was an ambitious album for them to do after Appetite for Destruction was probably the best out of the albums, all the albums they released. Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 was ambitious, but there was definitely some filler material. And that's another thing that pisses me off about some metal bands. It seems like with albums, especially double albums and even triple albums, depends on how many tracks there tends to be some filler material, and some of the filler material tends to be subpar. Like, it doesn't fit with the rest of the album. And that's absolutely fucking obnoxious. I don't get it. Like, why bother having these 3 or 4 tracks on a 14-track album, 13-track album, if they're not even that great, or if they don't even fit the rest of the album? It's like, who wrote this shit, you know? So, yeah, there's definitely some stuff out there that tends to be a little unnecessary, and that's kind of where it is. But right now, I've been slowly, very slowly, losing interest in heavy metal within the past 5 months or so, and I still listen to the bands I listen to and the albums I listen to, because there's always something that I didn't catch before. So, and I just enjoy the records. I enjoy the albums. But in terms of going after new bands and listening to their material and attempting to enjoy their material, I just don't give a shit anymore. If a band releases a new album, fine, whatever. If Cannibal Corpse happens to release an album in 2025, sure, I'll probably make a purchase, but besides that, and also, if Sodom releases a new album this year finally, please, release the goddamn album, Sodom. Hurry the fuck up. Yeah, I might consider a purchase of the album, but... yeah. Sometimes I tend to be picky choosy on what I tend to listen to in terms of, well, the metal distinction. Going to the new metal thing, there's bands like Snot who have released their first album, and that one was, well, I haven't even listened to it, so I wouldn't know. But I've heard snippets of some songs, and there's some pretty alright material there. And of course, there's Cold Chamber, who released Rivals, and I've heard at least a couple singles off of that album, and I wasn't really too fond of their material. And of course, there's another band called Devil Driver, which are more melodic death metal / groove metal, kind of. I don't know. And, ever since Winter Kills came out, and ever since, well, the last track on the album sort of blew me away on how I sort of just didn't care about Devil Driver's music anymore after track 11 of Winter Kills. But I still listened to their 2016 album, Trust No One, which was actually more of a better album, even with the 2 bonus tracks. But, I don't know. Metal, in general, tends to be pretty awesome. There's a lot of awesome work that's out there. A lot of great albums, a lot of great songs, a lot of great bands, a lot of great stuff. But there's just way too much of it seems. And it also seems that there's bands being formed daily or even hourly. It's hard to keep up with this shit. And that's my biggest problem with heavy metal. That's probably the main gripe I have with it right now. Other than, some albums tend to be worse than others. Looking at You, Illo Divinum Insanus by Morbid Angel. Lulu by Metallica and Lou Reed. Yeah, there's definitely some shit albums out there from great bands, but also shit albums from shit bands. So, I just find it hard to enjoy some of this shit that I continue to listen to, like Exodus, thrash metal band from the Bay Area scene. I still listen to Blood In, Blood Out because it's a great album. I still listen to Persona Non Grata because it's a great album too. In fact, I like it better than Blood In, Blood Out. It's just better, I think. So, but when it comes to other stuff, you know, there's it's just I mean, hopefully you understand my pain, because I tend to listen to metal and half the time I get a good feeling out of it. Half the time I tend to nod my head or bang my head, throw up their horns and or whatnot, and just generally have a good time, you know. But the other half is like, you know, I listen to it and I'm like, why am I even listening to this? Why the fuck am I even listening to this? Look at a band like Devourment, and I'm like, I listened to the albums. I've listened to their material. Unleash the Carnivore is probably my favorite album from them. But everything else, and even that album, just tends to be, you know, not that great. And even their recent album, Obscene Majesty, or whatever the fuck it is. I mean, heavy metal, for me, is definitely one that is, you know, the most diverse genre of music. There's a lot of stuff out there with a lot of ideas pouring in, and, you know, a lot of stuff comes out of it, some better than others. And, you know, there's jazz fusion elements and blues stuff as well. And, you know, people try to incorporate elements of, well, I guess if you want to consider hip-hop into heavy metal, well, I guess you want to say that's new metal to some extent. I mean, look at fucking Limp Bizkit. But hey, there's definitely some great material out there. It's just, and I'm sure that the albums that were put out by somewhat lesser known bands, but still moderately known bands, within the past 4 years or so, I'm sure there's some great stuff out there. It's just, I don't really care to listen to it right now. And I feel that I don't really care enough to listen to really any form of heavy metal without trying to, you know, or at least attempting to, you know, turn it off, you know, because it's like, it's just not fun anymore, honestly. And that's another big thing, is that most of the metal I listen to nowadays is just not fun anymore. You know, I still find joy in listening to White Zombie, mostly because I miss them being around, even though, you know, their last album was in '95, and, you know, come next year it'll be 30 years old. I can't imagine how Rob's going to celebrate, but I still find, you know, Rob Zombie and White Zombie are sentimental picks for me. I still listen to the material, and I enjoy that material. But when it comes to everything else, it just starts to feel like I've heard it 1,001 times, and I'm just kind of sick of it. I'm kind of done with it, and I'm just overall, I'm over it, you know? And that's another thing that that's something that might piss some people off, but saying, oh, you're not true metal, cult. Fuck you. You know, I can only tolerate some bands, well, especially nowadays, for a certain period of time before I have to go back to J-pop, because J-pop at least has some fresh ideas here and there, and some great material and some great catchy music, and it's fun. Makes you want to dance a little bit. And that's kind of fun. It's fun, it's catchy, it's awesome, and I love it. I love J-pop. In some ways, I love J-pop more than heavy metal because, especially the past, well, these 4 years that have gone by, I've been listening to J-pop ad nauseum, and it really just sort of, it's just, there's just a lot of great music that is being produced by these groups or artists in Japan. And there's a lot of great stuff out there. Yes, there's still rock bands and metal bands in Japan that make good music too. Like I said, Hanabi are a great metalcore band that kind of add a little different elements here and there. And they're pretty fucking awesome. But it seems like bands like Hanabi can't really compare to bands like Killswitch Engage. Even though the Killswitch Engage could be seen as sort of an influence on Hanabi to an extent, but, or at least to some extent, I don't know. But it feels like Hanabi can outclass even the biggest of heavy metal, the biggest of metalcore bands like Killswitch Engage or As I Lay Dying. Hi, Tim Limbesis. And other bands, you know, I can't even remember anymore. There's way too many bands out there, and it's, I mean, yeah, more stuff to listen to, but again, you just can't keep up with this shit. And it's just impossible. And that's why I'm kind of considering moving on from heavy metal. Finally, you know? I've been trying to move on for like the past 4 years. Maybe 5. And it always comes creeping back into my, well, ears. And it's absolutely fucking insane. It's like, you know, why'd I even start with this genre? But, you know, heavy metal definitely brought me joy for quite a while. There was definitely some sort of sad and depressing stuff that was in some of them. Like depressive suicidal black metal has some melancholic stuff there. But, you know, there's some other stuff that I'd rather listen to be honest. And, you know, there's just, I feel like I've rattled on enough. So, I'm going to leave it at this. If you still love heavy metal, if you love heavy metal at all, if you like it at all, let me know what your favorite bands are in the comment section below. And maybe we can discuss, you know, bands that are actually having, you know, something sort of, bringing something new to the table, but not, you know, going back in time or whatever. And, you know, copying others' homework. Because that seems to be a bit of a stain and a bit of a curse. Also, you know, the loudness wars is a thing, you know, bringing the production as high as possibly can. You know, it's, yeah, that's another thing. I'll leave it at this. So, I still enjoy heavy metal, but to a certain extent. Nowadays, I can only tolerate it for maybe a couple of albums. And then I have to shut it off, shelve the discs, and then move on to something else. Like J-pop. Artists like Nao Toyama. Yeah, she's pretty fucking awesome. And of course, Haruka Tomatsu. She's awesome too. She needs to release a new album, but, you know, her last single, which was her first single since Try and Joy, I think. What was it called? Alter Echo? Yeah, that's a great song. I like it. But I tend to feel happier as well. That's another thing. I tend to feel happier when I listen to J-pop. It definitely makes me feel, or well, J music in general, J-pop, J-rock. It just makes me feel something that metal was unable to make me feel. So it's kind of interesting, you know? It's weird, it's different. I honestly don't understand, but at the same time, I do understand. It's kind of like a half and half sort of situation here. But whether you agree or disagree, post in the comment section below. If you like metal, and if you're pissed off at what I said in this video, take a chill pill. It's just my opinion. I like metal to an extent, but I can only tolerate it now for only so long. And that's why I've been trying to, you know, steer away from the genre for as long as I possibly can, because I'm at this point where I'm done collecting metal albums. It's like, I can't possibly collect every single fucking album I want. It's just impossible. So, I'm just kind of starting to really, you know, I've been losing interest in heavy metal, and that is only because of, you know, it's sort of permeated my life for the past 15 years and a half, and it's sort of something that I just need to get away from. You know, I need to stop listening to heavy metal and listen to something else. Something else that I listen to, that I actually enjoy and I'm happy to listen to more than I am to when I listen to heavy metal. I still will listen to an album or two here and there, but that's all I can take. Be it a day or a week. I don't know. Point is, heavy metal is a fantastic genre of music. There's a lot of great material out there, but there's just too much of it. There's just too much of it. And that can be a blessing and a curse, you know. What is your relationship with heavy metal? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you have what I have, a love-hate relationship sort of thing? Do you have, you know, an affinity for all these bands that you like, or are there some bands that you feel are not worthy of the praise that even I give? You know, Rob Zombie is probably my favorite vocalist of all time in terms of metal. Whether you disagree with that, it's whatever. Post in the comment section below. And my camera's about to die, so well, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and well, hopefully I didn't piss a lot of people off, because I don't know. Yeah. You can tell that I obviously love J-pop a lot more than I love heavy metal nowadays. And that's perfectly fine, you know? It is what it is. At the end of the day, it is what it is, and my musical tastes are what they are, you know? Sometimes, for the past 4 years, metal and J-pop have been sort of flip-flopping for me, you know? It's either heavy metal is on top or J-pop is on top, whatever. For me, nowadays, especially, J-pop is on top. And heavy metal is slowly creeping its way towards the bottom, and I'm just losing interest in it, and just having I respect all the legendary bands out there. I do. But with a lack of originality, with a lack of fresh ideas, with a lack of, you know, keeping things, you know, new or just less typical, it seems like heavy metal is doomed to just kind of be a side thing, you know? And that's not good, to be honest. So we really need some new ideas, but the execution of those ideas must be pitch perfect. I feel like bands like Hanabi are trying to do that, and they're doing it rather well. But more than that is needed. That's just my opinion, though. Well, stay tuned for more videos. I'm TheZOMBIEJ. I'll see you folks. Have a good fucking day, and peace.